am going to give the deets on a happy marriage. A lot of times I talk about just relationship in general, but there are going to be some people who are listening to this content and they are married or they are engaged, or you may just want to know how to have a happy and successful marriage, because for you have not seen that, or you're seeing the statistics that 50% of marriages end in divorce. And there's going to be so many people telling you all the different reasons of why marriages fail. And a lot of the reasons are that people say, I'm going to tell you what I think it is, just by either coaching, observing other relationships and things like that. A lot of people say, oh, it's the finances. Oh, it's, adultery, or, cheating if it's a relationship. It's, lies or manipulation or abuse or just all these things. And I'm going to boil it down to two things, because a lot of times most states are no fault states in divorces. And if you were to look at them, they say irreconcilable differences. And what that means is we just can't get along. We can't get to the point that we can still be in a marriage, even though we have some of these differences. They're so great that we cannot repair this relationship. This relationship is, irreparable, basically, due to the type of differences that we have. And the differences could be, anything. It could be finances. It could be our parenting. That we're not being a unit in our parenting style, or that there is, adultery going on, and so many other things. But I'm going to boil it down to two things. And I think, for the most part, it is communication and accountability. And you're like, okay, how are you going to narrow all those things down into these two things? And what I've learned, just even in my marriage, and why I feel that my marriage typically is in a good place, is because I've had to learn these things, because it wasn't always there. It wasn't always there. My marriage is not perfect, but how I've learned to get through these 12 years, how I've learned to not just get through the 12 years, but get through it happy with the person that I'm with every day, and he being happy with me, and still being married to me. Like we still are in love with each other. We're not just existing like roommates, but just being legally married. We're actually happy. We have date nights. We, go out and do things throughout the week. We take days off to make sure our marriage stays intact. So it won't just be about the kids. And what I found that works is accountability and communication. So let me first do communication, because all those things that I was saying, finances, adultery, dealing with the kids, like the parenting styles, and just not agreeing on some things, it's going to boil down to communication. There's two parts to communication. There is the person that does not properly communicate. They don't communicate at all. And this would be I'm going to give some examples. It would be the fact that maybe you're not happy with a situation. Maybe you don't think that you're getting the respect or the love or the quality time that you deserve, the attention you deserve, the intimacy you deserve, the admiration you deserve. Whatever it is, you're not getting. Maybe the person isn't putting in the time, like they're letting themselves go. They're not putting time and energy to make themselves presentable for you. So it could be anything from weight or the way they dress. They're just too relaxed. It could be reciprocity. Whatever it is that's bothering you as the spouse, whether it's the husband or the wife, it could be that you feel like you have too much on your plate. Like you're having to clean up by yourself or deal with the kids by yourself. You have to, whatever it is, you're not properly communicating your grievances to your spouse, if that makes sense. You are not saying, well, this is what's bothering me. I'm feeling this type of way. You, instead of communicating all of your grievances, and I'm not talking about nagging, complaining, but you're not saying what's on your mind. So instead of doing, properly communicating like an adult, you do what children do. You either do silent treatment, you don't say anything, or you go out and cheat, or you stop providing if you're a man, or you stop being feminine if you're a woman, or you stop leading, or you stop, if you're a man, if you stop being submissive if you're a woman. When people are upset that they're not getting what they want out of the deal, or their need is not being met, sometimes they go as far as emotional games, playing manipulation, playing games, having an attitude, disrespecting, cheating, doing things out of spite. And all of these are a form of not communicating. Because you failed to communicate, you decided to have misplaced anger and take it out in some other form of way in your relationship. Okay? Another form, and so that's you not communicating. So instead of not communicating, you act out in other ways. All right? The other way is you are communicating, but the other person isn't listening, and you're not properly reacting to that. So like, let's say you do say, this is what's bothering me, and the other person is dismissing it. You're not properly addressing it. And also the person who is not listening, the other spouse who's not listening, they have inactive communication. And communication is not just hearing someone, it's active listening. And what does listening mean? It means to hear, comprehend, and properly respond. And response could be if someone asks you to not do something or asks you to do something. If it's not attacking any of your integrity, values, religious beliefs, whatever it is, why would you not want to do it for the benefit of the other spouse, right? So there's you as the spouse who is not communicating or properly responding to the lack of communication you are receiving, or the other spouse who is not actively listening and following through with whatever the other person is saying, that whatever their grievances are. So there's two forms of, communication, the not communicating or properly responding to a communication, or the other person not actively listening and following through with what the other person's grievances are. So that's all still a form of communication, because a person not listening is a form of ineffective communication. You not putting a stop to, red flags and things that you're seeing is also a form of not properly communicating on your end. If you ask someone to do something and they don't do it, if you never say anything else, you still didn't follow through with your part of the communication as well. And whatever results, consequences that come as, for that, you're not properly giving that. It's the same thing that you do with children. If a parent tells a child to do something and the child never follows through, and then you don't follow through with your disciplinary action, okay, what do you think is going to happen? So I'm not trying to equate, people to children, but these things start early. Learning how to properly communicate as a child can move up to when you are in relationships as an adult, because you never learned how to actively listen, or how to actively follow through, or how to actively say yes or no, or say what's bothering you. You're bottling up your emotions or something like that, right? Another form would be another form of ineffective communication would be how you communicate. So maybe you are talking to the other person, but instead of telling them how you feel in a respectful way, you are disrespectful. You are below the belt. You are hitting them where it hurts. You're doing low blows. You are, playing outside the zone. So you're talking about something that's hurtful to the person. You're talking about their body in a way that you are like an enemy would talk to them. You are talking about their parents. You're basically hitting below the belt. You are hitting soft spots that you know that's going to be emotionally harmful to them. You are not playing fair in the game is what a lot of people say. So you are making personal attacks instead of attacking the issue. So if the issue is, I don't think that you are being, honest, or I don't think this, or I don't think that. Instead, you decide that you want to make a personal attack at them. And you know it's going to hurt them. So a lot of times, people say things and they know it's going to hurt the other person's feelings, but they typically don't care because at that moment they're angry, right? Well, this is not what we want. We do not want people to say things that they cannot take back. You want to be, I would say, strategic in what you say, because sometimes when you're angry, I think sometimes when people are angry, they say things they do mean. I think people are saying things they mean, but because they realize, I would not have said that if I wasn't upset, but you still really meant what you said. Typically, when people are either drunk or upset, they typically say what's really on their mind. All right. The other thing would be, so we talked about communication. There's different forms of communication. Again, like I said, you're not communicating, or you are communicating, but you're disrespectful in that communication. You're yelling, you're fighting. It's not productive. It's not productive communication. Or you're the person who is not holding the other person up to what they need to do in the communication. So they didn't follow through and you didn't make sure they followed through, or there wasn't any consequences to them. And then the other person, they did not properly listen and follow through what they said they were going to do, what they should have done or stopped doing. All right. And the other thing is accountability. Okay. A lot of times people love to blame other people. And I'm going to give a good example. You may not like this example, but it's a good example. Cheating. When a lot of people cheat, some people cheat just to do it, but a lot of times people are not getting what they want out of the relationship, so they retaliate through cheating. Whether it's you're cheating because they cheated, or you're cheating because you don't get the respect, or you're cheating because you don't get the intimacy you want, or you don't get the look that you want this person to have, so you go cheat with someone who's doing something the other person isn't doing. Kind of like that. Well, people say the 80-20 rule. I only got 80%. The 20 I do want, I'll get it from somewhere else. That person is wrong for cheating. And again, that goes with the line of communication. Why are they explaining the 20% they're not getting, or what they need from the other person? Of course, you can't get everything from the person 100%, but you're not communicating your needs. So that's still communication, but the accountability goes on to the other person who's being cheated on as well. Not to say that it's their fault for being cheated on, but a lot of times people say they're at fault and I'm not at fault at all. This person cheated, so they're 100% wrong in the marriage. But there has to be something that you could have done better before it led to the cheating. So let's say someone said, I cheated because I don't get the respect I need at home. Okay, hold up your end of the deal. You weren't properly respecting that person. You have to share some fault in why the relationship is not working out, why the marriage is falling apart. I've learned in marriage, it's never really one person that makes a marriage a success or makes a marriage a failure. It's always something that you could have learned and could have done better in the relationship. Maybe it's that you let yourself go. So now we're not talking about cheating anymore, but we're talking about, why is there, irreconcilable differences? Why is the relationship not working? What is it? Because this person isn't, working. Let's say the man isn't leading. He's not working. What is it that you could be doing to help facilitate a better leader in him? Could you be more submissive and allow him to lead instead of taking over? Could you be the person that is more respectful to him to be more feminine so he can be more in his masculine? Could it be that, you could be not as so independent as he does not feel needed? Could it be that, for the man, could you be more loving and have more quality time where she doesn't feel like she has to spend too much time with her friends or on the phone because she couldn't get what she wanted from you, so she's trying to get that bonding time with someone else? Could it be that, he's not working late on purpose because he doesn't want to be home to your nagging, or vice versa? Could it be that you guys could have more of a cohesive parenting style instead of always butting heads, and that now you guys are so fed up with each other that it can't work? Could it be that you could have communicated better both of your grievances instead of saying you call it quits without consulting with the other person about how you're feeling? Could it have been that when the other person was saying how they felt, instead of you being defensive and dismissive, that you could have listened more and that you could have been more proactive instead of just reactive and fighting below the belt? Could it be that you guys could have effectively communicated without arguing like children? Could it be? Ask yourself, could it be that you could have done something differently? If you feel that you are perfect in the relationship, in your responses, in your emotional intelligence, in how you act, in how you behave, in how you retaliated, in the type of consequences that you've done, because should you have done emotional annihilation? I try to say that, like you emotionally annihilated them, that you physically annihilated someone. I try not to use the A word, but could it have been that you did not verbally annihilate them? Could it have been that you could have changed your verbiage of how you came across some kind of way? Could it have been that you not take everything personal, but you looked at it at face value? Hey, he thinks that you look, big in this dress. Could it be that you could lose some weight? Or maybe that it has nothing to do with weight, but that dress wasn't flattering. Instead of getting mad and then having, a sour attitude all day, that you could have listened, retained it, and moved on. Could it have been that she tried to tell you how she felt about your mood swings as a man, and instead of listening, you got an ego? So now you are on a power trip, or, or giving her the silent treatment. Could it have been that you guys could have done things differently in your relationship? It's not always just one person that made this relationship irreconcilable differences. You got to understand, irreconcilable differences, we could not agree on how to make this marriage work beyond our differences. So that means it's not really just one person. The only way I can see it as one person is one person fighting for the relationship and the other person completely gave up. One person is truly fighting and the other person saying, no, I'm done. That's the only way one person can make the marriage completely fail. Like that person completely said, I'm not doing anything. And not that they did something before and then now they're fed up because sometimes that could be because the other person still hasn't made a change or something. But I mean, this person never worked on anything. They never wanted anything to work because they've already checked out of the marriage mentally. They never wanted to be married. And I don't believe in, people just getting divorced all willy-nilly. But I have to say one thing about this. A lot of times people like to use God in the way of, no one should break up this marriage what God brought together, but God never brought you two together. So maybe you guys never should have been married. It's something you did. You did on your own volition. You did on your own will. You didn't consult God for this marriage. You didn't consult, other spiritual leaders or people around you, your support system of, is this person best for me? They probably were not good for you, but you chose them anyway. And then now you want to put God in it. God was never in it, sweetie. God was never in it, man. Okay. Y'all chose it. So now you guys can, in whatever that is entanglement that you call a marriage, and then move on with your life so you can heal and be whole and healthy. So God didn't always bring things together. Another thing would be, like I said, a lot of people try to put the blame on one person, but you're not all there. A lot of times people think too highly of themselves. You think you got it going on, but emotionally, you're not there. You don't have the emotional capacity to deal with things like an adult. You don't have the mental capacity. You haven't healed. You're not there either spiritually. Whatever it is, you guys are not on the same playing field. And again, I think a lot of times, whether it's finances, whether it's parenting, whether it's adultery, distrust, all those things have to do with the lack of communication. Okay? You could probably say, people being manipulative and doing certain things, those verbal, physical, and emotional annihilation, which I don't want to say the other A word, but all those things would have been signs when you were dating, not usually on marriage, unless you got you went from dating to marriage so quickly that it didn't have time to rear its ugly head. But a lot of times those signs usually have shown already. So I don't want to talk about that in marriage, because a lot of times, again, people already showed the signs. You just married them anyway. But most of the time, that's not the reason why people are not getting that's not the reason of divorce. Most of the time, it's because of irreconcilable differences. And a lot of times people say adultery and things like that, but it's because people aren't communicating. They aren't communicating what's going on with them. They only communicate after the relationship is over. A good example is if you watch the show Insecure, they finally communicated. It was, one of the couples, she cheated and he left the relationship. But if you really think about it, was the cheating the problem in the relationship? The cheating was the aftermath of why the relationship broke up. But she never communicated for years how she felt about him not working or things like that. Okay? She never communicated that. He never, and he finally communicated about how he felt about some things. So there's some things he didn't communicate, how he was feeling. They only communicated after the relationship ended. So instead of her communicating, she used her anger to go cheat. And that's what a lot of people do. They have communication issues. They don't properly communicate. They just, discuss with their friends. They can tell their friends about why they're mad and what the person's doing, but they're not doing that with the other person. Or they do communicate that, and the other person refuses to really hear what the other person is saying, comprehend it, and then do something about it. A lot of times people think that they did communicate, but they really didn't. They didn't really fully communicate. They hint around it, and they think the other person is supposed to get the understand what's going on in their head. A lot of times women do that. We think that men are supposed to read our mind. Be an adult and communicate your grievances. Tell them what is fully bothering you. Stop hinting around it and think they're supposed to get it. Oh, well, you should have known. I didn't like the fact that you weren't working. In this case, he lost his job, or he couldn't get the job. He was trying to get his business off the ground. So it was him. He lost that encouraging words as well, because if you notice in that same show Insecure, someone else gave him the encouraging words he needed to kind of get back out there. So if she didn't communicate her grievances, he was missing what he needed from her to get on his feet. Because he couldn't get his business off the ground. So things were going sour for him for years, and she didn't communicate that. So there's many, 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 many relationships that you could probably say the same thing. Look into your own relationships. Think about the woman who feels like her man is a tyrant, a dictator. And if she never says anything, that's her lack of communication. Or if she does say something and he ignores it, it's his ineffective communication. He did not listen and actively do something about it. Either stop doing what he's doing or to start doing something she wants. Like maybe if she wants more quality time, he's not giving it to her when she asks for it, or stop belittling her, right? So again, these are the main things. A lot of people don't want to believe it, but accountability. People think they can do no wrong. It's always the other person. So that means they don't take the blame, and that means they won't change themselves. They won't make the change that the other person would like for them to make. Or people aren't properly communicating, so both people can say, oh, this is what you wanted, this is what you needed, okay. And so if you want to know why relationships, why marriages are getting divorced, these are going to be the reasons. So thank you for tuning in. Take care.